I went to Kentucky Bourbon Fest, so you don't have to. Here's my full recap and review of 2024's event. Stay tuned after the break and we'll talk about whether you should go too. So I spent most of the last weekend at Kentucky Bourbon Fest in Bardstown, Kentucky. As you can see, I am wearing my shirt. It is pretty actually nice, surprisingly. I wasn't going to buy one because I don't like having all the distilleries on the back. It feels like a concert t-shirt, but I like the front. So I also got this sweet Green River hat there. This is right up my alley. I actually love the texture of it. And I love Green River, so it's a match made in heaven. So really the question here that I want to answer is, should you go to Kentucky Bourbon Fest? Next year's event will be held September 5th through 7th in Bardstown, Kentucky. If you didn't know, that is the bourbon capital of the world. So my goal is kind of to give you my experience and the highs and lows of that, and then you can decide for yourself if you want to go to 2025's event with the information that I've given, and I'll give you maybe some helpful tips and tricks along the way. The first thing that we're going to talk about is my experience at Kentucky Bourbon Fest. What I liked, what I disliked, what I did, because there's honestly a lot to do there. I think there were 66 distilleries this year, so if you really wanted to try all of the whiskey in one day, you would get hammered. So first tip, don't do that. So kind of moving through how it went for me. So day one, we got there a little bit before 12. I actually didn't get in until about 12:15 because I needed to get my wristband swapped. Pro tip, don't try and put on the wristband ahead of time. It will not come off. So I got in and was kind of looking around immediately off of the one gate, and I had seen a giant line, and then I saw somebody walking by with an old Fitz box. So I kind of asked around the line. They said this was the line for Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill makes old Fitz. So I stood in the line. I ended up being in that line with Brad and his wife, Steph, from the 717 Bourbon Society. One of the cool things about that was kind of using the buddy system. One or two of us would stand in line, and then the others would go and get drinks or, go visit the stands. We ended up spending about 2 hours in line, and I ended up getting an Old Fitz 13 VVS, which I was really excited for. Very shocked that they released it at the festival itself. If you've watched my recap, that's not news to you. And I ended up getting the very last one. So there were people that stood in line for well longer than 2 hours and ended up not getting a VVS. There was talk that maybe they'd switch over to a different premium product. They had Heaven Hill 18 there the next day, and the Parker's Heritage 14-year malted was also there, but they didn't release that until Saturday. I did not stand in line on Saturday. 2 hours was enough for me, and I don't want Heaven Hill 18 that much. But if you stand in line with a few people, generally seems like people aren't real pissed if you go and get a drink or you go and, root for a stand, as long as they know how many people are in front of them. People were jumping in and out pretty consistently across the line, so it's not, I don't think, that big of a deal. I don't know that anybody was truly pissed off about it. So then the tasting portion of things, pretty much across both days, I ended up tasting a good amount of whiskey. Some of it was to determine whether or not I buy it, because there were a bunch of single barrels available. Green River had one that I ended up purchasing. Old Forester had one that I did not end up purchasing. Four Roses also had one. I did not purchase that one either. 1792 Barton had one, but it was in super limited stock, and that one was actually in the Evergreen tent, not at their booth. And then a bunch of the craft places had them. So there are single barrels all over the place, and that was more what I was expecting. I was not expecting an Old Fitz 13, Heaven Hill 18, Parker's Heritage. Beam also had some of their special editions available. They had the Little Book Infinite and the Booker's Reserve, which are just recently being released. And then they had Baker's 13. To my knowledge, there was not a limit on any of those. At least not the Baker's 13. I know my buddy grabbed, I think, 4 of those. In separate times. He grabbed, I think, one at a time, but they weren't scanning licenses or wristbands. But getting that experience of going through and tasting some of the stuff, I prioritized tasting things that I hadn't had before or things that I was intending to buy. So I tried the Green River. I pretty much knew I was going to buy that either way. I ended up stopping at Rabbit Hole and trying both of their distiller series, the Cave Hill and the High Gold, and both of them were pretty good. I did enjoy those. Initially, I'd only told the bartender that I wanted to try the Cave Hill, and he's like, you want to try the High Gold? So I went for it. I enjoyed both of them. And the Cave Hill was honestly way better than I expected. It tasted like a chocolate-covered raisin. All about it. The festival was kind of broken up, distillery-wise at least, into 2 areas, and it seemed like the legacy distilleries like Old Forester, Heaven Hill, 1792, even Bardstown, like some of the more established, not saying they're not craft, but like Angel's Envy, that area was more those type of things. And then the area outside of the VIP area, we kind of referred to as the craft area, because that was more like your EJ Curly's, your Nulu's, your Pursuit Spirits, your Redline, your Mary Dowlings, your RD1s, those type of things. I kind of refer to that as the craft area. So it was kind of like split up between legacy and craft, kind of depending on if you went in the main gate. If you went in the main gate and went to the left, that was the legacy area. If you went in the main gate and went to the right, that was kind of the craft area. I think I ended up only buying 4 bottles from the festival. Part of that was because I was trying to prioritize things that I'd never had before or things that I really, really, really wanted. I could have ended up easily spending thousands of dollars and buying tons of bottles and taking them back to my car, because that's ultimately what I did. The lockers didn't really seem worth it to me. We were only parked like 2.5 blocks away, so I would get 4 or 5 bags and then walk them back to the car. That would be a major disadvantage if you are taking the shuttle from somewhere like Louisville, that you would have to lug that around all day unless you're getting a locker. So day 1 was mostly spent tasting legacy distilleries and buying a few bottles, and then day 2, I really prioritized craft stuff. I didn't get anywhere near trying all 66 distilleries. It just wasn't feasible. I did try offerings from a few different distilleries that I'd found interesting and had heard good stuff about, and then I took a couple of random dart throws by what looked good, what looked interesting. You definitely want to pace yourself. You want to try a few things, then maybe go sit down, watch one of the Bourbon 30 events, take some bottles back to the car, or, go grab some food. There's food trucks outside of the festival. You do have to leave and then come back in, but it's a seamless process. All you have to do is scan your wristband. On entry, definitely cool to stand there and talk to some of the places. A lot of the craft distilleries and even 1792 Barton had their master distiller at the booth. Shout out to Ross. He did our 1792 pick. That's another video for another time. We do have the teaser trailer out now, so check that out, and then check back for the 1792 pick that we did for 717 Bourbon Society. Full video probably next week, maybe later. It's a lot of footage to go through and kind of piece together. But Ross is a lot of fun. Really enjoyed doing the barrel pick with him and seeing him at the festivals. So with this experience, I can kind of take a step forward next time I go and say, okay, this is what I'm looking to try. This is what I'm looking to get out of it. These are maybe some bottles I'm looking for. And I can plan accordingly and figure out where I want to go and be a little bit more intentional about it. So I guess when we're asking the question, should you go to Bourbon Fest? The first question really of that is, what do you want to get out of it? Really, here's the highlights, right? There's bottle hunting there, right? There's lots of bottles that are for sale. Some of them are rare and limited. Some of them are, craft distilleries that you're not going to see most places. I would say 90% of the craft whiskey that was in that craft area is not available in Pennsylvania. Do you want to go and try everything? Do you want to go and try all of the bourbons? Do you want to try all 60 whatever distilleries? 66 this year, could be more, could be less next year. Do you want to try it all? If so, you want to prioritize and plan around that. You want to be able to figure out some stops for yourself, because if you try and get all of it done, especially if you're trying to try all of the whiskey at all of the places, you are going to end up so drunk you can't find your way home, because there is a lot of whiskey. Even though they give you tiny cups or the little mini Glens, we got a wee Glen with the tickets, no matter what level you got. Those pours stack up. I mean, I probably had 4 ounces of whiskey each day. That's a lot with the heat, with the food situation. So you're going to want to try and pace yourself, especially if you want to remember what whiskey you're tasting and how it is. Otherwise, after the first few pours, everything's going to taste good and you're going to buy a lot of shit you don't actually like. If you're looking to get the VIP experience, I think the tickets this year were $6.95, if I remember correctly. You get in an hour early, you get access to the VIP area, which is air conditioned, and there were definitely times when I was staring longingly in there. Unfortunately, I couldn't justify the jump from $160 to $6.95, even though I think they had tastings led by distilleries and a bunch of other interesting stuff going on in there. So I've heard that the VIPs were able to get multiple bottles, especially of the Heaven Hill offerings. I heard that from several different sources, and then I heard a specific source say that that was not the case. Although I do tend to kind of believe it, because when our group went through, they did not scan licenses, nor did they scan our wristbands. So we could have gone through multiple times, changed shirts, whatever, and I don't think they would have noticed. I definitely saw a bunch of that stuff on secondary and multiple bottles of it. So either they brought multiple people or you were allowed to get multiple ones. Don't take my word on it because I'm not giving you firsthand information. It is possible. It's also maybe not possible. I don't know. There's a few things that I would do differently. First things first, for a regular ticket, you really should get there at least 45 minutes early. You know, that will help you definitely get parking. That will help you get in line earlier. I think I would spend more time tasting whiskey. We only spent, I think, 4 hours on Friday there and 5 hours on Saturday there. And we did not go Sunday at all because we were traveling again. I think I would prioritize tasting things, maybe a little less time just walking around and hanging out. I was trying to get a lot of B-roll footage, so I did spend a good amount of my time making content. I would also bring more water because the water at the festival is booty. I don't even know what to describe the taste like, but it was like chemically and just not great. So day 2, I actually got a gallon of water and kept that in the car, and it was a lifesaver. I definitely drank that whole gallon and then more, just, you know, to offset the whiskey and the heat. It was, I think, 88 the first day and like 85 the second day. Would also bring some liquid IV or some form of electrolytes so that you are not just sweating out all of your minerals and not replenishing them. Between the whiskey and the heat, it was very much necessary. And I think ultimately, I just needed to be more intentional. I needed to plan better. I needed to kind of figure out what I wanted out of it. And now that I know, now that I've had the experience, I think I can do that more efficiently. Would I recommend you go? First off, do you like whiskey? If the answer is yes, then I think you should go to Kentucky Bourbon Fest. I think it's an experience that every whiskey enthusiast or bourbon enthusiast should have at some point. It is a great experience. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet influential people in bourbon, whether it's the master distillers or, you know, that one dude Ryan, or I actually stopped and talked to Bruzel because everybody here says that I look like him. I mean, really, do you guys think I look like him? Drop it in the comments, yes or no. But ultimately, I think it's an experience that every whiskey enthusiast needs to have. So yes, I recommend you go. Would I recommend you get VIP tickets? I don't feel like I missed out. I mean, other than the air conditioning, not having VIP tickets, I think it would have been great for some things, but it would be hard to justify the cost, especially for me. If you hate standing in lines and you don't mind the cost, definitely buy the VIP because then you can kind of avoid the crowds at points or, you know, get in early, get to do the stuff that you really desperately want to do and you know is going to be highly sought after. And then you can get that out of the way and go on to the stuff that's maybe not as popular. I do not feel like you need to get the VIP pass. I had a lot of fun at Kentucky Bourbon Fest, and I will definitely be going back at some point, maybe not next year because, you know, kid. In the future, I will definitely be going back, and I hope to see you there. Quick reminder, we've got upcoming events. There is going to be a live stream between me and Bourbon of the Week. He is currently in the midst of doing a raffle for the month of September for Team Steve, which benefits childhood cancer. Cancer in general and childhood cancer are something that are near and dear to my heart. So if you want to maybe win some whiskey and you want to hang out with Chris and I on live, definitely something that you want to watch out for. It's coming soon. I don't know the exact date yet, but just stay tuned. In addition, the fantasy whiskey draft is coming at some point. We are having scheduling issues getting that done, but it is coming. It will happen, I promise you. In addition, check back Friday for my first impressions on the Maker's Mark Cellar Age. That one I think is going to be a banger, and I want to get it open so that it can eventually go on the big board. Definitely drop comments if you are interested in Kentucky Bourbon Fest. If you have questions, I would love to answer them. If you want to tell me your experiences at Kentucky Bourbon Fest, whether it was this year or previous years, I would love to hear them. If you like this content, check out our other videos. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Helps us out a ton. And we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers.
Back in the day, it was like we were driving around and just looking for the cool ones.
Yep.
Like if
Hello, internet people.